All right, guys, welcome back. We're doing another little race review, the last one of the season for the 2024 Downhill World Cup Series. Now, I put out a little thing a little while ago saying that I did want to go and actually race Mont-Sainte-Anne, and I did. I really did. I thought about this when I was over in Bali recently, and I thought it would just be a cool ending to the story of me actually going to the last World Cup and finishing kind of what I started. I was obviously supposed to finish this last season. I had my accident in America and was unable to go and do my last World Cup. And I just thought when I was in Bali, I was like, it would be so cool just to get over there and finish it and just not even care about qualifying or actually getting to the race, but just being there, being in the atmosphere, being at the race, being around everyone and just finishing it, finishing what was a 17-year career. But once I kind of thought about it and how realistic it was to get over there, I don't actually currently own a downhill bike. I would obviously go over there as a privateer. I wouldn't have support. Possibly Scott would have maybe helped if I reached out, but I didn't want to kind of, I don't know, push things and make anyone feel uncomfortable. So I looked at flights. Flights were about $4,000. Plus then obviously I need to find a bike. I need to get everything done. And I just looked at everything that would go into just doing this one race. And it was just like, again, obviously I retired because my heart isn't in it. And I'm a little bit sad I didn't go through with it and go and do the race. But at the same time, if I wanted to do it, I would have done it. But maybe in the coming years, depending how hard it is actually going to be to register and race a World Cup, I would like to just do one more to retire properly. Like I never got my retirement from the sport that I was obviously in for so long. So I think at some point I'll race a World Cup and that will be my last World Cup. But when that will be, I don't know. And with how it's sounding, the World Cups are going, with how hard it is to register, how many points you'll need, how many teams there'll be, how many riders there'll be, it might actually never become a thing. We're obviously got to wait and see how that goes. But what I'm hearing right now is it's going to be quite tricky. But yeah, we will see. I was going to say though, what a race. What an absolutely epic race. Mont-Sainte-Anne always turns it on. They did a lot of work to the track. They actually started a bit lower, which was a bit interesting, where you obviously couldn't just be in the actual gondola thing, which was always good for cover. And obviously there's always thunderstorms and rain there. So it's a bit weird that they put it further down the track, but is what it is. But they look like they did a lot of work to the track. They look like they actually did a lot of good changes. And even bits that were there last year seem very like loamy and loose and still quite good. And just seeing the feedback from the riders, everyone seemed to be enjoying it. Mont-Sainte-Anne is one of those tracks where it's rough, it's hard, it's tough, but everything's not that hard. There's nothing on it that is really super challenging, but just overall as a whole, when you get so tired, it does become one of those tracks where it's just more survival than anything, especially towards the bottom in the rock gardens where everything's so sharp and square edged and you have to be so precise. And when you're obviously at the end of your run, you're very tired and very fatigued. So it's easy to make big mistakes. So watching the race back, it was cool to see, especially, I'm going to start on this and then we're going to work our way back. But to see Troy Brosnan come back and win after obviously missing world champs and then Ludon Vial, and it kind of shows you that how much, I guess, pressure, stress, travel gets put on us as an athlete when you're constantly back to back to back. Now, a lot of people always compare downhill to motocross and they're like, oh, well, you only do 7 races out of the year, like motocross riders do 18 to 20 or however many it is. But most of those people, if not all of those people, live in America or live in Europe where they don't have to travel far to compete, where they have like a motorhome, normally travel with their family, and they have a very, I guess, enclosed circle of competition. Now, with the World Cups, like you're going to different countries, you're traveling on flights, you have jet lag, you're away from your family, especially being an Australian, we're away for a long time. So you get all those factors and you put them into a full World Cup circuit. And towards the end, like you're just tired. Like you're tired, you don't want to be there as much anymore, you miss your family, you miss your home. And that comes through in your race results. Now, for Troy to go home, have a child, or his wife have a child, and then have that reset, even though he said he wasn't sleeping much because he was changing diapers and doing all that, it's different when you're at home with your family and you know you've just got to go back for one race. Like one race that's fine. That's easy. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel with you going back to your family. So I think that was probably one of the biggest things. Even in an interview prior to them practicing, he said he just wants to ride his bike. Like he's been full dad mode for the last few weeks, and now he's like, okay, I get to ride my bike. And it's like that mindset of changing that I have to do something to I get to do something. And you can see how that comes across in his riding, and obviously getting the win was that mindset was a massive factor in him getting that win. So I think it really does shine a light. Even he said he hadn't been riding his bike for the last few weeks. Like he just literally been dad mode. And it's when you get to that point when you're competing and you don't actually need certain things as much as you think you do. Like you hear with professional fighters like Max Holloway, for example, he doesn't spar that much. Like he knows how to fight. He is super, super, super well trained in sparring or fighting. So when he goes into camp, he mainly just trains physically, so then he can maintain that. But you get to a certain point where you actually having a break from the thing that you're doing is actually going to be more beneficial for you than just like going at the same thing until you wear yourself down and you don't actually want to do it anymore. So that's a balancing act, and everyone's so different, but it is cool to see when it does pay off. I'm going to go into some fun facts as well. Troy Brosnan won by the closest winning margin this year, which was 0.006 over Lockie Stevens-McNabb, which I'm going to be honest, I wish Lockie won. He has been someone this year where he crashed in, I'm pretty sure it was Poland, and I reckon he would have won that World Cup. So to see someone come back and still get good results and obviously win the US Open last weekend, you can see that his speed is there and how much of a danger man he's going to be next year. But to get second by that small of a margin, knowing how good he's riding and knowing that he could have got the win is it's got to be a stinger. But I don't think that's the last we've got to see of Lockie Stevens-McNabb. I think he's going to be a threat next year for sure, and definitely be someone to watch out for. Max Alran Max Alran was the fastest rider in finals. Now, I don't know how much the conditions changed for them and the elite guys. I believe it was probably a bit more slipperier for the actual elite men. So it's always hard to tell when you take junior times and put them against elites when they're not racing at the same time. It just doesn't convert. Like, yes, he's going quick. Yes, he's one of the fastest guys there. But you look back at Jordan and Jackson, and I know they obviously transitioned to elite and then won. So he has the speed, but it's just hard on a day when you practice and race at different times to then compare the two, which is, I don't know, it's tricky, but definitely going to be a danger man next year. Also, there was only 10 elite riders that finished every qualifying, semi-final, and finals run in 2024. That does show you how, like, you have to be consistent over all of those different categories to actually get a good overall in the end. I'm going to go I'll go through the top 5 for the elite, then the elite women. But we had Troy Brosnan obviously in first, Lockie Stevens-McNabb, Laurie Greenland as well, back on the podium. He's had a rough year with injuries and kind of coming back, so it was cool to see him be right in the mix. He only missed out on the win by 0.5 of a second, so nothing. So it's crazy how you can have all this bad luck, you can have injuries, you can have all this stuff, and then you can come back and almost win at the last round. It's like, I think that's why we love this sport so much. It doesn't matter where you're at. It can always change. It can always turn, and you can just have your best race out of absolutely nowhere. So that was cool to see Laurie up on the box. Remy Thirion, the man, one of my favourite all-time riders, in fourth. It's cool to see him as well. Obviously, he's been on the new team with Giant, and I guess he's always like been there, but he hasn't had those big breakout rides. So it's always good to see him get on the podium, especially at a track at like St. Anne, which I wouldn't say is particularly his track. I think the conditions being slippery would have helped, but he's more of a steeper, more technical rider. So to see him almost get the win, he's only 1.1 back as well. And then in fifth, Benoit Coulange laid it down. It was all quite tight. So from first to fifth was 1.1 of a second. So absolutely, absolutely nothing in it. But cool to see the podium. Like, Benoit's obviously been floating around that, but everyone else on the podium, that's a mix-up. Like, I wouldn't be putting those guys in my fantasy league going into that race. So to see them all lay down is so cool how this sport is always getting thrown around and always changing. But in the women, we had Millie Josette was in 5th. So it's cool to see her get more consistent and just get those results on the board. She seems to have more confidence now when you obviously get those good results and you get a podium and you're like, oh, I believe I can do this. And then you obviously start to do it. Phoebe Gale was in 4th. She's the same as well with that consistency and getting those runs on the board. And then once you start doing that, you kind of believe and you kind of step outside. Obviously, she's been in Tani's shadow for a long time, so it's cool to see her kind of finding her own feet and like doing her own thing. Valley Hole got 3rd. She was only a little bit of 2 seconds back, and she's obviously wrapped up the overall as well. I wonder how much of that was just like a safety game just to get down, not get injured. She had nothing to prove. She's like, I've done it. I'm just going to get it done. Gracie Hemstreet, she was in 2nd with 1.4 back, and she's obviously someone else that's like really found her own at the moment and really riding consistent and getting runs on the board, and you're just kind of waiting for her to get the win. But Marine, sorry, I can't talk at the moment. Marine Cabarrou got the win, which is cool to see. It's the 2nd of the season, and it's cool to see her just be more consistent again. She's obviously had a lot of issues over the last few years, me being a teammate with her, seeing her struggles and things she's gone through since obviously doing so well and then knowing that she can, but just not really finding that form that she was on for so long. So yeah, it's cool to see her get back straight where she belongs and getting the win and just like getting that consistency back, which is absolutely epic to see. In the overall, it was crazy to see the jump in the overall from how I think Troy was in 6th, and then he went from 6th and he jumped back like all the way up to 2nd. So he passed Anne-Marie. Obviously, Anne-Marie had an injury, couldn't race, which is unfortunate. He would have been going all out for this race, kind of nothing to lose, obviously, with Loic getting the overall win. Obviously, Loic wasn't on the podium. I think he had a crash or went off the track. But yeah, it's funny how when you kind of don't have that pressure, some people don't actually. It's like when you know it doesn't matter, there's a level that you just don't care as much, and like that's when bad things happen. Like when, just say Loic had to win, I guarantee you he probably would have won or been on the podium. But when you go into something, you're like, I don't have to win. I don't even have to be here. I could stay home. That somehow seeps into your subconscious and makes you not perform at the level that you know you can. So that was interesting. But Loic Bruni got the win. Troy Brosnan in 2nd. Anne-Marie Perrion 3rd. Rona Dunn 4th. I think that's probably the standout of the year, is just the consistency and results that Ronan's been able to throw down. Like everyone knows how much of a loose unit that man is and how he throws everything at it. But to be able to be that consistent, to get 4th in the overall and get a win this year is pretty extraordinary. And I'm pumped for Ronan. I think that's probably the standout ride of the year, of like how consistent he's been and how he's gotten those results. Vinal was in 5th. Andreas Kobe was in 6th. Benoit Coulange was 7th. Lucas Shaw, he's another guy under the radar that's always just getting good results, but was in 8th. Dakota Norton, he's just waiting to get a win. I'm going to say it now. Next year, Dakota Norton is going to win a World Cup. I don't know where, don't know when, but he's going to win a World Cup for sure. Loris Vergier, it was kind of weird with Loris. I feel like since he's gotten the stripes, which was obviously quite recently, he's always got like the PD curse of like things go wrong or not riding the best. And I don't know if like you don't care again because you're world champion and like you kind of won this big thing and you're still on that high from that, or whether that's gotten in your head now that you have to perform a certain way. But yeah, it just seems interesting that Loris, after he obviously won the stripes, he has not seemed to like keep that form. Remy Thirion was in 11th. Lockie Stevens McNabb jumped up to 12th. Ocean was in 13th. Danny Hart 14th. Bernard Kerr 15th. Greg Minnaar, last World Cup of his career at Mont-Sainte-Anne, gets to finish this tail in 16th. Still being that consistent and still getting podiums and being 16th in the world. And I think, what is he, 43 now? 42 or 43? It's, man, hats off to that man. He's done absolutely epic things. I think he's going to continue on with Norco as being like playing a role somewhat to Petey. I can't imagine him not being at races or not being a part of the circuit, but it's going to be interesting to see how he plays a role and how he actually falls into that and how he enjoys that. I think you absolutely love being a part of it still, and he's got so much knowledge to give. Charlie Hatton was in 17th. Thibaut Deprella had a massive crash at Mont-Sainte-Anne. I think he's all good. He's in 18th. Greg Williamson 19th, and Reece Wilson back in the top 20 with 20th. So epic to see all those guys. In the women, we had Valley Hall took it out by 400 points over Marianne Cabarrou, Tani Seagrave third, Miriam Nicole fourth, and Nina Hoffman in fifth. So pretty much the regulars in there. Valley just still seems like the unstoppable one. Once she gets on a roll, she gets the points and she just kind of runs away with it. But it's cool to see like Marin and even Tani and stuff coming back and like fighting to make sure it's not as easy for her as it could be. But yeah, that's it. I think the other big standout actually was Aaron Gwynn coming back. I think qualified or semi-final in 7th and then ended up 12th. So to see him finally get back and be right in the pointy end of all this was really cool to see. He's obviously had his issues and things go on. So to come back on a new team, new bike, and still be able to perform and be right around that top 10 in the world is no easy feat. So it was cool to see Gwynny get back to where he kind of left off, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes in the future. And obviously, like I said, with all these team changes and all these things happening, I don't know, it's hard because even for me, like I'm obviously so invested in downhill, but it doesn't interest me as much as it used to. And I don't know if that's just because of where I'm at in my career, in life, and whatever it may be, or it's just how they sell the product and how they're changing it to have the semis on a certain day and only have this many in the finals, and all of it doesn't seem, the commentary, everything about it just seems like it's not quite what it was, obviously not what it was, but as engaging or as exciting. And I don't know if that's just me. I'd love to hear your opinion, whether you find it's not what it is. And then also with these changes, if they are true, with them cutting it down even more and making it even more hard for new riders to get involved, is that going to push you away more? Or do you think that's how the sport should be and make it more professional for the people that are there? But yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about the direction of it, what you think is going to happen, and if that is the wrong or right thing to do, because it just seems like it's got a bit of a dampener on it, and it bums me out because it is such a good sport and it does give so much to so many people, but it just seems like it's slowly dying in a way, which, yeah, it's a bit sad, but I'll keep talking about it and keep listening to what you guys think, and hopefully some people would see it that need to see it and you make some good change. But yeah, that's the Mont-Sainte-Anne recap. And if I missed something, I'm sorry, but I'm also tired and need to go to sleep. Bye, guys.